Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Michael Jordan's estate in Jupiter, Florida, sat in the quiet morning stillness. The sun had just started to rise, casting a soft glow over the expansive property. Jordan, already up and starting his morning routine, moved through the house with the quiet precision that defined his life. At 6 a.m., every day was a mission, his workouts, his coffee, his meditation, all part of what kept him at the top of his game even after his final retirement. He wasn't the kind of man who needed an alarm to rise early. His body was conditioned to wake up before the world did, ready to conquer whatever challenge was next. As he walked into his kitchen, the sound of birds chirping outside interrupted his thoughts. He glanced out the window, but the peaceful sight was interrupted by something unexpected. There, right on the edge of his meticulously maintained lawn, was a teenager, sleeping. Jordan froze for a moment, unsure if he had seen correctly. The teen, wearing a worn-out hoodie and sneakers that had clearly seen better days, lay sprawled on the grass, face turned towards the sky. It was a strange sight, an unexpected intrusion on his otherwise solitary mornings. He considered calling his security team immediately. The estate, after all, was meant to be a private retreat from the public eye. But something about the scene gave him pause. The kid wasn't doing anything threatening, he was just sleeping. And there was something oddly familiar about it. After a few moments of contemplation, Jordan made a decision. He walked outside, his footsteps soft on the grass as he approached the teen. The closer he got, the more he noticed. This wasn't just some random kid who had wandered onto his property. There was something about him, something that suggested he had a purpose. But what? Jordan bent down, his shadow falling over the teen. "Hey," he said quietly, tapping him lightly on the shoulder. The teen stirred, slowly opening his eyes. The look of surprise and then sheer panic was immediate. He shot up into a sitting position, his wide eyes locking onto Jordan's face. Sorry, the teen stammered, his voice shaking. "I didn't mean to." "It's okay," Jordan interrupted, raising his hand in a calming gesture. "What are you doing here?" The teen swallowed hard, his nervousness palpable. I just had to see you. I'm a big fan. I wanted to meet you." Jordan's eyebrows raised slightly. "You just wanted to meet me?" The teen nodded, almost as if this was a completely normal thing to do, sleep on the lawn of one of the greatest basketball players to ever live. Jordan's initial irritation began to give way to curiosity. "Why here? Why my place?" Jordan asked, his tone a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The teen hesitated, unsure of how to explain. I ran away. I don't have anywhere else to go. But I've been watching you for years. I play ball, and I've seen everything you've done. I want to be like you. I want to get to the NBA. Jordan's mind raced. It was a lot to digest. A runaway teen, obsessed with basketball, sleeping on his lawn, was this some kind of stunt? But there was something genuine in the kid's eyes, something real. Jordan took a deep breath. He'd met many fans in his life, but this one was different. This wasn't about autographs or selfies, this was about something deeper. "You're serious about this?" Jordan asked, his voice softening. "About the NBA, about basketball?" The teen nodded again, his determination unmistakable. "I've been working at it my whole life. I know I'm not there yet, but I believe I can make it. I just need someone to show me the way." Jordan stood there for a moment, studying him. The teen was young, probably no older than 16, but there was something in his demeanor that suggested maturity beyond his years. A drive. A fire that Jordan recognized in himself back when he was trying to make it out of North Carolina. It was that hunger, the relentless desire to be the best, that separated the greats from the rest. "I'm not just going to put you on a plane to Chicago or New York and have you try out with some team," Jordan said, still trying to make sense of the situation. "You've got to earn it." "I will," the teen said quickly. "Whatever it takes." Jordan thought about it for a second. He wasn't exactly known for taking on projects like this, especially ones that seemed more like pipe dreams than reality. But there was something about this kid, something raw and untapped, that intrigued him. He couldn't explain it, but there was a certain energy about the situation that felt different. "You're going to need more than just a good story," Jordan said, his voice growing serious. "You want to make it? You've got to put in the work. It's not just about talent, it's about mentality. If you want to make it, you've got to work harder than anyone else out there." The teen's eyes lit up, his nerves forgotten. "I'm ready. I'll do whatever it takes." Jordan smiled slightly, a rare expression that only came out when he was genuinely impressed. "All right then. Here's the deal. You stay here for a couple of days. I'll watch you. You'll work out. You want to be great? Then you better be ready for what comes next." The teen nodded enthusiastically, his excitement and disbelief mixing into one. "You mean, you'll train me?" Jordan's smile grew slightly, but he kept it reserved. "I don't train people just to train them. But I'll give you the chance. The rest is up to you." Jordan turned to walk back towards the house, but then stopped and glanced back over his shoulder. "By the way, what's your name?" The teen hesitated, then replied, "Josh. Josh Harris." "Well, Josh, don't get comfortable," Jordan said with a smirk. "You've got a long way to go." Josh watched as Jordan disappeared into the house, a mix of emotions swirling within him: shock, excitement, fear, and a deep sense of determination. He had been given a chance. It wasn't going to be easy, but nothing ever was. And for the first time in his life, he felt like he was standing at the edge of something bigger than himself. This was his moment. The moment he had been waiting for. And he wasn't going to waste it. The next morning, Josh woke up to the sound of birds singing outside the window of the guest room Jordan had provided for him. The room was simple, functional, and far more comfortable than anything he had ever slept in before. For a moment, it didn't feel real. He blinked several times, taking in his surroundings: white walls, a large bed, a wooden dresser, and, of course, the view of Michael Jordan's sprawling estate outside. He hadn't just stumbled into some random house or ended up in some stranger's guest room. He was here. In Michael Jordan's home. Jordan had offered him a chance. The deal was simple: Josh had to prove himself, put in the work, and show that he had the drive to make it. Jordan had said the road would be tough, but Josh had no illusions about that. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. One he couldn't afford to waste. The clock on the wall read 6:15 a.m., and Jordan's words from the day before echoed in Josh's mind. "You want to be great? You've got to work harder than anyone else out there." The pressure settled over him immediately. There was no turning back. No second chances. If he was going to make it, he had to give everything he had, every single day. Josh got up quickly, not bothering to waste any time. He threw on his gym shorts and a t-shirt, grabbed his sneakers, and headed downstairs. The house was quiet, but he could see the faint outline of Jordan through the glass doors at the back of the house. He was already out there, moving, working. Of course, Jordan was already in motion. That's who he was, always ready, always pushing himself. Josh couldn't afford to lag behind. Stepping outside, Josh squinted as his eyes adjusted to the brightness of the morning sun. The lawn was as pristine as ever, and Jordan was on the far side, warming up with a basketball. He dribbled the ball with quick, precise movements, his focus unwavering. Josh hesitated for a moment before walking toward him, not wanting to interrupt the rhythm of his idol's practice, but Jordan turned his head as soon as he saw Josh approach. "You ready?" Jordan asked, his voice steady and direct. There was no softness in it, just the sharpness of someone who had been through it all. Josh swallowed, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. "Yeah. Ready as I'll ever be." Jordan gave him a quick nod and tossed the ball toward him. "Get warmed up. I'll be watching." Josh caught the ball with a smooth motion, but his hands were slightly sweaty, betraying his nerves. He dribbled once, then twice, feeling the ball bounce beneath his fingertips. He looked over at Jordan, who was already studying him with the kind of intensity Josh had only seen on TV. His presence was dominating, but Josh pushed through the unease. He needed to show Jordan that he wasn't just some kid who showed up on a whim. He was serious. He belonged here. As Josh started warming up, Jordan didn't say much, simply observing. The ball bounced loudly as Josh moved through his drills, working on his dribbling and shooting. At first, he felt awkward, his movements weren't as fluid as he'd hoped. He missed a couple of shots, and frustration started to build in him. This was supposed to be his moment, but everything felt more difficult than he expected. Jordan's silence weighed heavily on him. Was he judging every mistake? Was this just another test? After a few minutes of pushing through his warm-up, Jordan walked over and held up a hand to stop him. All right. Let's see what you've got. Josh stopped dribbling, his heart racing. What do you mean? I mean, let's see how well you can play. You said you wanted to make it. Let's see if you can back it up. Josh felt the weight of Jordan's words. He had known this would come eventually. Jordan wouldn't just give him a free pass. He wasn't about to waste his time with someone who wasn't ready. Josh took a deep breath, wiped his palms on his shorts, and nodded. Jordan grabbed the ball and handed it to Josh. I'll play defense. Show me what you've got. Josh nodded and started dribbling, but the second Jordan squared up against him, everything changed. Jordan wasn't playing around. His defense was suffocating. Josh tried to break past him with a quick move, but Jordan anticipated it, stepping to the side and blocking his path. Josh tried again, changing direction, but Jordan was right there, in his face, not giving him an inch. For the first time, Josh realized just how high the bar was. He thought he could dribble well, but Jordan's defensive prowess was on another level. This was what it meant to be great. Every move he made was calculated, controlled, and relentless. Josh found himself starting to get frustrated. No matter what he did, Jordan was a step ahead. But there was something in the way Jordan moved, something in the way he held himself, that made it clear this wasn't just about physical skill. It was about mentality. Jordan stopped him again, raising a hand to signal for a break. You're fast, he said, his tone measured. But you're thinking too much. You're trying to do too much. Josh looked at him, confused. What do you mean? You're thinking about the moves you want to make, instead of just playing the game, Jordan explained. Basketball isn't about overthinking. It's about reacting. It's about instinct. Josh nodded, trying to absorb the advice. He felt like he was just scratching the surface, but it was clear there was so much more to learn. This wasn't just about basketball drills, this was about a mindset. Jordan had spent his career honing his instincts, his reactions, his ability to read the game. You're not just playing against me, Jordan continued. You're playing against the game itself. You've got to see the court, not just the ball. Anticipate the next move, not just the one in front of you. Josh took a deep breath, trying to let the advice sink in. The pressure was starting to feel like more than he could handle, but he had to push through. This wasn't the time for doubt. He had to step up and rise to the challenge. Jordan watched him for a moment, then nodded. All right, let's go again. Josh tried his best to put the advice into action. This time, he moved faster, reacting to Jordan's movements instead of trying to outthink them. He wasn't perfect, but he could feel the difference. His shots were coming off his hands cleaner, his footwork was more fluid. He wasn't beating Jordan, but he was getting closer. By the time the sun was high in the sky, Jordan called for a break. Josh collapsed onto the lawn, sweat dripping from his forehead, but he felt a sense of accomplishment. This wasn't easy, but it was real. Jordan was right. This was about more than just skills. It was about mental toughness, about pushing past the limits, about reacting and trusting your instincts. Jordan walked over, holding out a water bottle. You're not bad, kid, he said, his voice calm but approving. But we've got a long way to go. Josh took the bottle gratefully, wiping his forehead with his sleeve. I'm ready. I'll do whatever it takes. Jordan nodded once, then turned and walked back to the court. Good. Because that's what it takes. But it's up to you to keep going. Josh watched him walk away, a fire burning inside of him. He knew what he had to do. There was no turning back now. He had been given a chance, and he wasn't going to let it slip away. The next few days were a blur for Josh. Every morning, he woke up before the sun and joined Michael Jordan on the court. The intensity was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Jordan was relentless. He didn't just push him physically, he tested him mentally, demanding perfection in ways Josh hadn't thought possible. It was brutal, but it was exactly what Josh needed. He quickly learned that talent alone wouldn't get him anywhere. It was about how much he was willing to sacrifice, how much he could endure, and how far he could push his body and mind. The workouts were exhausting, but they weren't just about building muscle or improving his shot. Jordan's training was about mastering the mental side of the game. Every drill, every play, was designed to push Josh to his limits, to break down any mental walls he had built up. If Josh missed a shot, Jordan made him take another. And another. There was no such thing as a good enough shot. Every time Josh made a mistake, Jordan would look at him with a raised eyebrow, his face unreadable. Do it again, he would say. Better. Josh started to understand what Jordan meant by instincts. It wasn't about thinking about what you were going to do next, it was about knowing. Knowing where the ball would go, where your teammate would be, where your opponent was going to be before they even made the move. Jordan taught him to read the court, to anticipate what was coming next. Basketball is a game of decisions, Jordan would say, and you've got to make the right ones at the right time. If you can do that, you're halfway there. But it wasn't just basketball that Jordan was teaching him. He was teaching him how to be relentless in everything. In the mornings, they ran sprints, and after each one, Jordan would tell Josh to run one more. Then another. Then another. It was never enough. The message was clear, you are never done. Even when you think you can't go any further, there's more in you. There's always more. Josh was beginning to feel the weight of it all. The hours on the court, the grueling workouts, the pressure to be great, it was overwhelming at times. But with each passing day, he could feel himself getting better. His shots were sharper, his footwork more precise. He was starting to trust his instincts. But there were days when he thought about giving up, days when the exhaustion felt like too much, when the doubts crept in. Those days, Jordan was always there, pushing him harder. One day, after an especially grueling practice session, Josh collapsed on the ground, gasping for air. His muscles ached, and his mind felt foggy from the constant pressure. He lay there for a moment, unsure if he could go on. But then Jordan appeared in his line of sight, standing over him, watching him with that piercing gaze. You're tired, Jordan said, his voice calm but firm. I can see it. But you know what? That's exactly why you need to keep going. Because when you're tired, that's when you separate yourself from everyone else. This is when the great ones rise above. And you're either going to push through it, or you're going to let it defeat you. It's up to you. Josh swallowed hard, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He wasn't sure if he could get up. But something about Jordan's words clicked in his mind. He wasn't just training him to be a better player. He was teaching him how to be mentally tough, how to push through when every ounce of his body screamed to quit. Josh struggled to his feet, his legs shaking beneath him. I'm not going to quit, he said, more to himself than to Jordan. Jordan nodded slightly, the faintest hint of approval in his expression. Good. Because that's the only thing that matters. You don't get to decide if you're good enough. The game decides that. The court decides that. All you can do is put in the work. And so, Josh did. He put in the work. Every day, he pushed himself harder. Jordan had given him a taste of what it took to be great, and now Josh wasn't going to let it slip away. The next few weeks were a blur of sweat, exhaustion, and small victories. Every shot felt like a small triumph. Every sprint, every drill, every moment he fought through the fatigue was a step closer to his dream. One afternoon, Jordan pulled him aside after practice. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the court. Josh wiped the sweat from his forehead and glanced at Jordan, who was standing off to the side, arms crossed, watching him closely. "You've been working hard," Jordan said, his voice quieter than usual. "I can see it. You're improving. But you need to remember something. You're not just playing for yourself. You're playing for everyone who's ever believed in you. Every person who's ever told you you couldn't make it. They're the ones who are watching now. You've got to prove them wrong." Josh looked at Jordan, feeling the weight of his words. It wasn't just about the game. It wasn't just about proving he could make it to the NBA. It was about proving everyone wrong. All the people who had told him he wasn't good enough, all the people who had doubted him, all the people who had written him off. This was his chance to show them he could make it. "I won't let them down," Josh said, determination in his voice. Jordan gave him a small smile. "That's the right attitude. But remember, it's not just about proving other people wrong. It's about proving yourself right. You've got to believe in your own abilities, no matter what anyone else says." Josh nodded, the fire in his chest burning brighter. He had come so far already, but he wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Every day was another chance to improve, another chance to show Jordan that he wasn't just some kid who got lucky. He had something to prove. To Jordan. To himself. To everyone. As the weeks passed, Josh continued to improve. He became more confident in his game, trusting his instincts more and more. His shot became more consistent, his defense stronger, his footwork sharper. Jordan had shown him the way, and now Josh was taking it to heart. He was starting to see the game differently, no longer just a series of plays and moves, but a battle of wills, a constant fight to stay one step ahead. One afternoon, after a particularly tough scrimmage, Jordan pulled him aside again. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the court. Josh was exhausted, but there was a sense of pride in his chest. He had played hard, and it felt good. Jordan was watching him closely, as always, but this time there was something different in his gaze. "You've come a long way, Josh," Jordan said quietly. "I see it. You're not the same kid who showed up on my lawn a few weeks ago. You've got the heart, the work ethic, and the drive. But now, it's about consistency. Can you keep this up? Can you bring it every day, no matter what?" Josh didn't hesitate. "I will." Jordan nodded, a small smile crossing his face. "Good. Because if you can do that, then you're well on your way. Keep working, keep believing in yourself. And remember, this is just the beginning." As Josh walked off the court that evening, the weight of Jordan's words settled in. He had come a long way, but the journey wasn't over. In fact, it had only just begun. He had the tools now. He had the mindset. All that was left was to prove it. To the world. To Jordan. To himself. The days turned into weeks, and Josh's training with Michael Jordan became even more intense. It wasn't just the physical workouts anymore. The pressure had shifted to the mental side of the game. Jordan had taught him the fundamentals, honed his skills, and pushed his body to its limits, but now it was time for Josh to prove his ability to handle the mental demands of the game. Jordan wasn't just going to hand him a spot in the NBA, he needed to see if Josh could handle everything that came with it, the pressure, the scrutiny, the relentless competition. One morning, after an especially grueling series of drills, Jordan stopped him mid-sentence as Josh was catching his breath. Jordan's tone was different, serious, measured. "You're getting better. But there's still something you're missing." Josh's heart sank for a moment. He had been putting in the work, but there was still a sense of doubt creeping in. Was he good enough? Was he ever going to be able to reach the level Jordan was pushing him to? Your game is solid, but your head isn't in it yet. You're still holding back, Jordan said, his eyes locked onto Josh's. You've got the skill, but the mental game is what's going to separate you from everyone else. You've got to stop second-guessing yourself. Play with confidence. Josh nodded, but inside, he was still unsure. Confidence wasn't something that came easily to him. He had spent most of his life doubting whether he was good enough. He was from a small town, and the idea of playing in the NBA had always seemed like a distant dream. Now, after everything Jordan had shown him, it seemed closer, but the fear of failure was always lurking in the background. Jordan, sensing the hesitation, took a step closer. I'm not going to baby you. There's no place for self-doubt in the game, not if you want to be great. You've got to let go of the fear of messing up. The best players in the world don't hesitate. They know what they're going to do before they even touch the ball. If you want to be like them, you've got to start thinking like them. Josh thought about it for a moment. Thinking like them? It was easier said than done. He had seen what it took to reach the level Jordan had, years of dedication, sacrifices, and countless hours of practice. But Jordan wasn't telling him to do what he had done. He was telling him to think differently, to approach the game with a different mindset. The next day, Jordan threw Josh into a real game. It was a pickup game, but it was as competitive as anything Josh had ever seen. Players from all over the area showed up, some seasoned veterans, others hungry young talents just like Josh. The atmosphere was electric, the kind of game where every possession counted. There was no hiding here. Jordan was on the sideline watching, and the pressure was on Josh to perform. The first few minutes were a blur. Josh fumbled with the ball, missing easy shots and making awkward passes. His nerves were getting the best of him, and every mistake felt like it was being magnified. He could hear the whispers from the other players, the slight chuckles, the murmurs about how the new guy wasn't cutting it. His confidence started to slip. Then, Jordan's voice cut through the noise, loud and clear. Stop thinking. Play the game. It was a simple command, but it hit Josh hard. Stop thinking. Play the game. Jordan had said the same thing 100 times, but now it resonated with him on a deeper level. He couldn't let the pressure weigh him down. He had to trust himself. Trust his instincts. Stop overanalyzing every move. Josh took a deep breath and refocused. He wasn't going to let the doubts win. He dribbled the ball down the court, blocking out the distractions. He saw an opening on the right side, a slight gap in the defense. Without hesitating, he took the shot. It wasn't perfect, but it went in. The ball swished through the net, and for the first time in the game, Josh felt a surge of confidence. He wasn't just going through the motions. He was playing. The next few minutes were a blur of fast breaks, quick passes, and strategic moves. Josh's play improved. He moved with purpose, reacting to the game instead of trying to control it. He made passes that led to assists, his defense tightened up, and his confidence soared. By the end of the game, his team had won, and Josh was exhausted but exhilarated. He had been thrown into the deep end, and he had swum. Jordan watched the entire time, but said nothing until the game was over. Well, Jordan said, walking up to Josh, that was more like it. Josh couldn't help but smile, the adrenaline still pumping through him. I thought I was going to mess up. That's the problem, Jordan replied. You're always thinking about messing up. You've got to let that go. The game will teach you everything you need to know if you trust it. And you've got to trust yourself. Josh nodded, the weight of Jordan's words sinking in. He had trusted himself for the first time in the game, and it had paid off. He realized that basketball wasn't just about the physical grind, it was about learning to trust his instincts, to play with confidence, and to be able to shut out the noise around him. As the days went on, Jordan continued to challenge Josh in new ways. They played one-on-one games, with Jordan's defense suffocating Josh at every turn. He pushed Josh harder than he had ever been pushed before, but Josh was starting to handle it. His game was improving, and his mind was sharpening. Jordan continued to teach him the nuances of the game, the little details that separated a good player from a great one. The way to read the floor, the ability to anticipate a play before it happened, how to react under pressure. But despite his improvements, Josh knew the hardest part was still to come. The road to the NBA wasn't just about working hard, it was about proving himself against the best. And as much as he had learned from Jordan, he still had a long way to go before he could call himself an NBA-level player. One evening, after an intense practice session, Jordan pulled Josh aside again. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the court. Josh was exhausted, his body sore from the constant grind. But he knew there was still work to do. "You've been working hard," Jordan said, his voice quieter than usual. "But there's one thing you need to remember. The NBA isn't just about talent. It's about your mindset. Every single player there is talented, but the ones who succeed are the ones who can handle the pressure. The ones who can rise above the noise and focus on what's important." Josh nodded, sweat dripping down his face. "I'm ready. I won't let the pressure get to me." Jordan studied him for a moment, then gave a small smile. "I believe you. But you've got to keep it up. Every day. Keep working. Keep pushing." Josh looked at him, determination in his eyes. "I will. I won't stop." Jordan nodded, then turned to leave. As Josh stood on the court, catching his breath, he realized something. He had come a long way from the kid who had showed up on Jordan's lawn, uncertain of where his future would take him. But he wasn't done yet. The real test was still ahead. The NBA wasn't just a dream, it was a goal. And with everything he had learned, Josh was ready to make it happen. The weeks that followed seemed to blend into one another, each day a repeat of the last. But for Josh, the intensity and purpose of his training were never more real. He woke up before dawn, ready to face whatever new challenge Michael Jordan would throw at him that day. By now, Josh had made major strides. His shot was smoother, his footwork more fluid, and his mental game had improved dramatically. But Jordan wasn't letting him settle. There were days when Jordan would criticize him for the smallest mistakes, pushing him to the brink of exhaustion. But there were other moments when he'd nod in approval, giving Josh just enough reassurance to keep going. One evening, after an especially brutal session of sprints and one-on-one games, Jordan sat down next to Josh, who was wiped out, struggling to catch his breath. Jordan looked at him for a moment before speaking. "You've come a long way, but the real test is about to begin." Josh sat up, wiping sweat from his brow. "What do you mean?" Jordan's gaze hardened. "You've got the skills, you've got the mindset, but now it's time for you to face the NBA. I've been teaching you, pushing you, but nothing compares to what you'll face at the next level. The pressure, the speed of the game, the competition, it's a whole different beast. And the only way to know if you're really ready is to throw you into it." Josh's heart raced. He had known this moment would come, the point where he would have to prove he could compete at the highest level. But the reality of it hit him hard. He wasn't just training anymore. He was about to face the real test. And it terrified him. The next morning, Jordan wasted no time. After a quick breakfast, he handed Josh his sneakers and a duffel bag. "Get dressed. We're going to a tryout." Josh froze. "A tryout?" His stomach flipped. "What do you mean?" "I thought." No more thinking, Jordan interrupted. "This is the moment. You've got everything you need. But you've got to take what we've worked on and apply it in front of scouts. This isn't practice anymore. This is the real deal." Josh nodded, his hands trembling slightly. He hadn't expected this so soon. He thought there would be more time, more preparation. But the truth was, there would never be a perfect moment. This was the moment, and he needed to be ready for it. Jordan's words rang in his ears, "This is your chance. Don't overthink it. Just play." They drove to a nearby gym where the tryout was being held. The building was nothing special, just a worn-down high school gym with wooden floors and a handful of scouts sitting at the edge, scribbling notes. But the atmosphere was charged with nervous energy. Every player there had something to prove, and Josh could feel the weight of it. The air was thick with tension, and the sounds of sneakers squeaking on the court were almost deafening. As soon as Josh stepped onto the court, all the doubts and fears that had been swirling in his mind started to fade. He was used to this. He had been playing basketball for years, and even though this was different, the game was still the same. The rules were still the same. The pressure was the only thing that was new. Jordan gave him one last piece of advice before Josh stepped into the fray. You've trained for this. But now you've got to show them who you are. Be aggressive. Don't wait for opportunities to come to you. Take them. Josh nodded, steeling himself for the battle ahead. The first few minutes were a blur of activity. He was running up and down the court, trying to get a feel for the pace. His nerves were on edge, but he was determined to hold his ground. Then, after a fast break, the ball was passed to him. Without thinking, he took the shot. It went in. For a moment, Josh didn't register the significance of it. He just kept playing, moving, and reacting. But then, the scouts started to take notice. They began jotting down notes, whispering to each other. It was like a switch had been flipped. Suddenly, Josh wasn't just another guy in the gym. He was someone to watch. The next few minutes were a whirlwind. He drove to the basket, made an assist, played tight defense, but the highlight was when he hit another three-pointer, this time under pressure. The crowd, well, the handful of people who were watching, let out a small cheer. Jordan, standing at the sidelines, nodded approvingly. By the time the scrimmage was over, Josh was exhausted, his legs burning from the constant movement. But there was a sense of accomplishment, too. He had gone out there, faced the competition, and held his own. As he walked off the court, Jordan was waiting for him, standing with his arms crossed. You did well, Jordan said, his voice steady but with a slight hint of approval. But don't get comfortable. This is just the beginning. Josh wiped the sweat from his forehead, feeling a mix of relief and pride. I don't plan to. The next few days were filled with follow-ups from scouts and teams interested in Josh. Jordan had given him the tools he needed, but now it was up to Josh to prove he could handle the spotlight. Each call, each meeting with scouts, felt like a step closer to his dream. The pressure didn't let up. If anything, it intensified. As the days wore on, Josh kept reflecting on what Jordan had told him. This was just the beginning. The real test wasn't about one good performance. It was about consistency. Could he keep this up? Could he continue to push through the pressure and show that he had the mental toughness to compete at the highest level? He wasn't just playing for himself anymore. He was playing for everyone who had ever doubted him. He was playing to prove that he was worth the shot. Jordan didn't sugarcoat anything. He would show up at practices, watch Josh play, and offer his feedback, sometimes brutal, sometimes encouraging. But there was always a point. There was always a reason for the challenge. Jordan had never believed in taking shortcuts, and he wasn't about to let Josh get comfortable. Every day was a new opportunity to improve, to get better. No matter how good Josh got, he knew it wouldn't be enough until he reached the very top. One evening, after another long day of practices and meetings, Jordan pulled Josh aside. They were sitting outside on the patio, the sound of crickets filling the silence between them. Jordan was looking out at the stars when he spoke. Your shot is good. Your defense is solid. But it's your head that will make or break you, Jordan said. You've got the potential. But you have to believe it. Believe you belong. Josh didn't know how to respond. He was still processing everything. His dream was right in front of him, but there was still so much to prove. And in the back of his mind, the question lingered, was he really ready? Jordan turned to him, sensing his hesitation. The moment you start doubting yourself is the moment you lose. You've been given a chance. Now, you've got to make the most of it. Josh looked at Jordan, seeing the unwavering confidence in his eyes, the same confidence that had driven him to be the greatest. It wasn't just about basketball. It was about believing in yourself when no one else did. "I'll make it count," Josh said, his voice steady. "I won't let you down." Jordan smiled, the slightest curve of his lips. "You already are." For the first time in a long time, Josh believed it too. He wasn't done yet. He was just getting started. The following weeks were a whirlwind for Josh. The momentum he had built from his initial success had pushed him into the next phase of his journey. He had proved that he belonged on the court at the highest level, but now he had to prove he could keep it up. The scouts were calling, the meetings were lining up, and the pressure was starting to feel heavier than ever. But Michael Jordan was right there, pushing him every day to stay focused, to stay grounded. Jordan had made it clear that the NBA wasn't about talent alone. It wasn't just about making the right plays. It was about being mentally prepared for the grind, for the pressure, and for the constant scrutiny that came with being at the top. Each day on the court felt like a test. Josh wasn't just proving himself to the coaches and scouts, he was proving it to himself. He had to keep proving that he had the grit and determination to make it, not just for a day, but for a career. One morning, Jordan had a different kind of challenge for him. Instead of the usual drills and workouts, he took Josh to a local high school gym where a group of young, hungry players were waiting for him. These were the kids who looked up to Jordan the way Josh had once done. Jordan wanted Josh to show them what he had learned, not just from his training, but from the mindset that Jordan had instilled in him. Josh entered the gym, the eyes of a dozen teenagers immediately falling on him. These were players with dreams just like his, players who wanted to make it big, who wanted to follow in Jordan's footsteps. It was a humbling feeling for Josh, but also a reminder of why he had started this journey in the first place. He wasn't just here for himself. He was here to be an example, to show others what was possible with the right work ethic and mindset. Jordan stood by the sidelines, watching closely. He had made it clear that today wasn't just about Josh showing off his skills. It was about teaching these kids what he had learned. It was about passing the torch. Josh took a deep breath, then walked to the center of the court. He looked around at the faces of the young players, all eager to see what he could do. A few of them were already talking about his game, whispering about his performance in recent tryouts. It felt like an odd mixture of pressure and pride. But Jordan's voice cut through the noise. "Show them what you've got," he said, his tone calm but filled with authority. Josh nodded and started with a simple drill, a basic ball handling exercise. He dribbled left, then right, working through the moves with the precision Jordan had drilled into him. The ball bounced off the court with a steady rhythm as Josh effortlessly moved through the motions. The kids watched him closely, but it wasn't just his moves that caught their attention. It was the confidence with which he performed them. Josh could feel their eyes on him as he demonstrated each move. He wasn't just showing off his skills, he was teaching them how to think the game through. As he moved through the drill, he gave them pointers, how to handle pressure, how to read the defense, how to make quick decisions. The real lesson wasn't in the physical act of playing. It was in understanding how to think the game, how to trust your instincts, how to stay calm under pressure. He could see the change in their faces as he spoke, as the light bulbs went off. When he finished, Jordan spoke up from the sidelines. "All right, Josh, let's see how well you can turn it up." Josh didn't hesitate. The intensity kicked up a notch, and he moved into a scrimmage against the kids. He wasn't trying to embarrass anyone, but he was playing hard. His defensive positioning was solid. His shot, which had once been shaky under pressure, was smooth and accurate. He could see the kids struggling to keep up, but that was the point. He wasn't just teaching them how to play. He was teaching them how to fight for every point, how to give everything they had in the face of adversity. In the middle of the game, Josh found himself matched up against a particularly aggressive player. The kid was quick, with a lot of energy, but he wasn't as skilled as Josh. He went for a quick move to the basket, but Josh anticipated it, stepping in to block the shot. The gym went quiet for a moment, and then a few of the players started clapping. It wasn't just about the block. It was about Josh's ability to read the game, to be a step ahead. After the scrimmage, the kids gathered around Josh. Some of them were eager to ask questions about how to improve their game, while others were just in awe of what they had just witnessed. It was clear to Josh that the message he was delivering wasn't just about basketball. It was about believing in yourself, about putting in the hard work, and about pushing through the inevitable setbacks. Jordan walked over to Josh and gave him a quick nod of approval. "Good work today," he said. "You've got the right mindset now. But this is just a small step. You've still got a long way to go." Josh didn't need to be told twice. He knew the road wasn't going to get easier. If anything, it was going to get harder. The pressure was only going to increase, and the competition was only going to get fiercer. But now, he felt like he had the tools to face it. He had the mindset. He had the foundation. And more than anything, he had the belief in himself that had been missing before. In the weeks that followed, Josh found himself balancing the intensity of his training with the pressure of the impending draft. Every practice, every game, was a reminder that the next step was coming. There were no guarantees. Nothing was handed to him. He would have to earn it, just like he had earned every minute of training with Jordan. One afternoon, Jordan took Josh aside and told him that a team had shown significant interest in him. The draft was approaching fast, and things were starting to get real. The calls were coming in, and Josh knew his chance was finally within reach. "You've done the work," Jordan said. "Now it's time to take what you've learned and put it to use. Be ready for anything. The NBA is a different world. It's going to challenge you in ways you can't even imagine." Josh took a deep breath. It had all led up to this moment. All the early mornings, all the grueling workouts, the late-night reflections, and the constant pushing. It had all been for this chance. Now, there were no more excuses. He was ready. Jordan had prepared him, and Josh wasn't going to let this opportunity slip away. The night before the draft, Josh sat alone in his room, reflecting on how far he had come. It was hard to believe that only a few months ago, he had shown up on Jordan's lawn, desperate for a chance. Now, he was on the verge of making his dream come true. The road ahead was uncertain, but Josh knew one thing for sure: he had put in the work. And no matter what happened next, he had done everything he could to make this moment a reality. When the draft finally came, Josh's heart raced as his name was called. He had done it. He was going to the NBA. And as he stepped up to shake hands with the team that had selected him, he knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. The moment Josh heard his name called at the NBA draft, everything changed. The months of grueling training, the doubt, the pressure, it all built up to this. He had made it. But even as he stepped onto the stage to shake the hand of the team's general manager, he could feel the weight of the responsibility pressing down on him. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. His family, sitting in the front row, erupted in applause. His mother's face was beaming with pride, and his father's hands were firmly clasped together as if in disbelief. He had made it out of the small town where everyone had told him he wasn't good enough. Now, he was standing in front of the NBA, a dream realized, but the journey ahead was daunting. Jordan had been there to watch the draft unfold, standing silently in the back with a quiet smile on his face. Josh had often wondered if Jordan would be proud of him when this day came. Jordan's words kept echoing in his head: "It's not about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right." He'd done that. But now, it was time to prove it on the court. The first few days with the team were a blur. Josh was surrounded by players who were just as talented, if not more so. The speed of the game was faster than he had ever experienced, and the physicality was intense. But what struck him the most was the pressure. He had never felt eyes on him like this before. Every move he made was scrutinized. Every shot, every pass, every defensive stance was evaluated by coaches, analysts, and his teammates. The same self-doubt he had struggled with earlier crept back in, but now, it felt even more real. He wasn't just trying to prove something to himself anymore. He was trying to prove he belonged here. In his first practice with the team, he was thrown into a scrimmage with the starters. The speed of the game was overwhelming. He struggled to keep up at first, missing easy shots, hesitating on passes, and getting lost on defense. His coach, a stern but fair man, didn't let him off easy. "You're not here to play nice, Josh," the coach said, his voice cutting through the gym. "You're here to compete. If you're not ready to bring it every second, you don't belong here." Josh nodded, but inside, he was frustrated. He had given everything he had to get to this point, but it still didn't feel like enough. The pressure was more than he expected. It wasn't just about the game anymore. It was about surviving in a world where everyone was as hungry as he was. He wasn't just one of the guys anymore. He was fighting for his spot. That night, after practice, Jordan called him. Josh had been hoping for this, hoping that after all the work he'd put in, Jordan would offer some reassurance. Instead, Jordan asked one simple question. "How's it feel?" Josh sat down on his bed, his phone pressed to his ear. He could hear the faint sound of traffic in the background. "It's harder than I thought," Josh admitted, his voice low. "The speed of the game, the pressure, the competition, it's different than I expected." Jordan was quiet for a moment before responding. "Of course it's harder. You're playing against the best of the best now. But that's the point. This is where the game is won and lost. This is where you separate yourself from the pack. And right now, you're letting that pressure get to you. You've been here before. You've been in situations where the odds were stacked against you. You've already proven you can handle it. All you have to do now is show it." Josh took a deep breath. He knew Jordan was right. This was the moment he had prepared for. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about rising to the occasion, day in and day out. The next day, Josh approached practice with a new mindset. He wasn't going to let the pressure control him. He had trained his whole life for this. And now, it was time to show the world he belonged. During the scrimmage, Josh played with more aggression. He didn't hesitate. He attacked the basket when he had the chance, fought for loose balls, and made smart passes. He wasn't perfect, but he played with heart. And slowly, he began to win the respect of his teammates. His defense was tighter, his shooting more consistent, and most importantly, he wasn't afraid to fail. He had realized that the fear of failure was what had been holding him back. If he played to avoid mistakes, he was never going to succeed. After practice that day, one of the veteran players approached him. "You've got something," he said, his voice gruff but approving. "But don't get comfortable. Keep working." Josh nodded. He knew the work didn't stop here. He had made it into the league, but that was only the beginning of his journey. Over the next few weeks, things began to fall into place. He wasn't starting yet, but his minutes on the court increased. He had moments where he played well, moments where he could feel the progress he had made. But there were also moments of struggle, where the pressure felt unbearable, where the doubts crept in. He would miss a shot or make a mistake, and it would feel like the whole world was watching. In those moments, he would think back to what Jordan had told him, "You've been here before. You've already proven you can handle it." In those moments of doubt, Jordan's lessons were what kept him going. He remembered how Jordan had taught him to push through when things got tough, how to take failure in stride and learn from it. He had to believe in himself, even when things weren't going his way. As the season progressed, Josh started to find his rhythm. His playing time increased, and with it, his confidence. He had his ups and downs, but he was improving. His teammates began to rely on him more, and the coaching staff started to see the potential that had drawn them to him in the first place. One night, after a tough game where Josh had been instrumental in a comeback win, the team gathered in the locker room. The coaches were praising the effort, and the atmosphere was one of excitement and camaraderie. Josh sat quietly in his corner, reflecting on how far he had come. He had been through so much to get here, and it hadn't been easy. But he was starting to feel like he truly belonged. As the team began to leave the locker room, Jordan's voice came over the speakerphone. I'm proud of you, Josh. You've come a long way. Josh smiled, grateful for the words of encouragement. Thanks, Coach. You're not done yet, Jordan said, his voice firm. This is just the beginning. Keep pushing. Keep proving yourself. And remember, it's not about what you've done. It's about what you're going to do next. Josh looked around the locker room at his teammates, at the players who had once seemed so far out of reach. They were now his teammates, his brothers in the game. He knew there was still a long road ahead of him, but for the first time, he felt ready. He had the mindset. He had the drive. And with every game, every practice, every moment on the court, he was getting closer to fulfilling the dream he had worked so hard to achieve. The grind of the NBA season was unrelenting. Games came fast, and each one felt like an audition. There was no such thing as an easy game, no such thing as a guaranteed win. Each matchup was a test of skill, endurance, and mental toughness. Josh quickly realized that the pressure didn't just come from the fans or the media, it came from the constant need to perform. Every game, every practice, every play mattered. He could feel the weight of it, and it wasn't just the weight of the game itself. It was the weight of expectations, his own, his teammates, and the city's. One late-night practice, after a particularly grueling loss, Josh was walking off the court when his coach stopped him. He had played poorly, missing crucial shots and getting caught out of position defensively. The loss stung, but it was nothing new. Losing was part of the game. But the feeling of disappointment, both from himself and from those around him, cut deeper than any physical pain. Josh, the coach called, his voice calm but firm. Come here for a minute. Josh turned around, his legs feeling heavy. He had no energy left, but he knew the coach wasn't done with him yet. He walked over to the sideline, where the coach was standing with a serious expression on his face. I know you're frustrated, the coach began. You had an off night. It happens. But you've got to learn how to shake it off. This league isn't about how you feel after a bad game. It's about how you come back the next time. Josh nodded, but the weight of his poor performance still hung over him. He knew his coach was right. The question was, how could he shake off the feeling of letting everyone down? How could he keep pushing forward when failure seemed inevitable? You've got potential, the coach continued. But potential doesn't mean anything if you can't get past the tough nights. You've been through the hard work, the grind. Now, you've got to prove that you can stay strong when it gets tough. Josh took a deep breath. He knew what he needed to do, but it didn't make the task any easier. The game had always been something he loved, something he had dedicated his life to. But the NBA was different. It was no longer just about playing. It was about surviving. It was about proving yourself day in and day out against the best competition in the world. The next day, he came into practice with a new focus. He didn't let the disappointment from the previous game weigh him down. He couldn't afford to. He worked through the drills with intensity, pushing himself harder than ever before. His shot wasn't perfect, but he wasn't thinking about it. He wasn't thinking about anything except the next move, the next play. Jordan had always preached the importance of mental toughness. The game doesn't care about how you feel. It doesn't care about your mistakes. It cares about how you react to those mistakes. Josh had taken that advice to heart. It was time to prove that he could react the right way. No more looking back. Only forward. That night, the team had a crucial game. They were playing against a rival team, one that had been dominating the season. The atmosphere in the arena was electric, and Josh could feel the anticipation in the air. This wasn't just another game. It was a statement game. A chance to prove that they were contenders, that they could go toe-to-toe with the best. Josh wasn't starting. He hadn't earned that yet. But he was determined to make the most of his minutes. When the coach called his name, Josh felt a jolt of adrenaline. This was it. This was his chance to show what he could do under the bright lights. The first few minutes on the floor were shaky. He missed a quick shot and got caught out of position on defense. But instead of letting those mistakes drag him down, Josh dug deeper. He reminded himself what Jordan had told him. No one cares about your mistakes. They care about how you respond. Josh took a deep breath and reset. He focused on the next play, not the last one. His next possession, he drove to the basket, drawing the defense and kicking the ball out to a teammate for an open three. The shot went in. The next few minutes were a blur of fast breaks and hard defense. Josh played with a new sense of urgency, a fire that he hadn't felt before. The game went down to the wire. With less than a minute left, the game was tied. The ball was in Josh's hands. It was time to make a play. He dribbled to the top of the key, surveying the defense. He could see his teammates moving into position. He could feel the weight of the moment. Everything had led to this. But this time, instead of freezing under the pressure, he felt a calm confidence. He wasn't thinking about the previous games, the missed shots, or the mistakes. He was thinking about the next step, the next move. Josh made his move. He faked left, then drove right. The defender bit on the fake, and Josh took it straight to the basket. The defender scrambled to recover, but Josh was already in the air, finishing with a contested layup. The crowd erupted. The team was up by 2 with 30 seconds left. The defense held strong, and the opposing team was unable to score. When the final buzzer sounded, Josh's team had won. The arena was buzzing with excitement, but Josh stood still, taking it all in. The game was far from perfect. He still had mistakes to fix. But this was a step forward. He had shown himself that he could handle the pressure. He had responded the right way. In the locker room, his teammates were congratulating each other, but Josh stayed quiet. The adrenaline from the game was still coursing through his veins, but the real victory wasn't just in the win. It was in the way he had fought through adversity, and the way he had risen to the challenge when it mattered most. He wasn't just proving himself to his team or the fans. He was proving to himself that he could handle the pressure. Later that night, as Josh lay in bed, he thought about everything that had led up to this moment. It had been a long road, filled with doubt, pain, and uncertainty. But it had also been a journey of growth. He had learned that success wasn't about avoiding mistakes. It was about learning from them, about rising above the challenges, and about playing with confidence, no matter the circumstances. Jordan's words echoed in his mind. It's not about how many times you fall. It's about how many times you get up. And in that moment, Josh knew that no matter what came next, he was ready. The NBA wasn't just a dream anymore. It was his reality. And he was going to keep proving himself, one game at a time. As the season progressed, Josh started to settle into his role on the team. It wasn't always easy, but he was growing. With each game, he felt more comfortable on the court, and the doubts that had haunted him at the start of the season slowly began to fade. His confidence wasn't built overnight. It came from the constant work, the constant struggle to stay focused and improve. And it came from his understanding of what the game required, both physically and mentally. The team had started to gel. Players were finding their rhythm, working together in ways that made them look more like a cohesive unit than ever before. Josh wasn't a star, not yet. But his contributions were becoming more significant. He was no longer just a bench player. He was a part of the rotation, and when his name was called, he made the most of it. His defense was solid, his shot was improving, and his basketball IQ was growing with every game. One night, as the team prepared for a tough away game against a top contender, Josh was sitting in the locker room, going over the game plan. His teammates were talking among themselves, joking around, but Josh's mind was focused. This game was going to be a test. A real test. Winning this game would send a message, not just to their opponents, but to everyone else in the league. The team was on the rise, but they weren't there yet. If they were going to compete for a championship, this was the kind of game they had to win. Josh had worked hard to get to this point, but now he had to prove that he could step up when it mattered. The pressure was different now. It wasn't just about performing in individual games or avoiding mistakes. It was about contributing to the team's success in a meaningful way. Everyone was counting on each other. The stakes were higher. As the game began, Josh's nerves kicked in. The arena was electric, the crowd roaring with energy. Every pass, every play, every shot felt amplified under the bright lights. The opposing team came out strong, attacking with relentless energy. It was clear from the first few minutes that this game was going to be a battle. Josh didn't start, but he was determined to make an impact whenever he got his chance. Late in the first half, the coach called his name. Josh jogged onto the court, heart pounding. The moment he stepped onto the floor, the game seemed to slow down. He focused on his breathing, his feet, his hands. The ball found its way into his hands after a few quick passes. Without thinking, he launched a three-pointer. It went in. Josh's confidence soared. It wasn't just the shot. It was the feeling of being in control, of playing the way he had been trained to play. He was calm. He was focused. And he was playing to win. The game continued, back and forth. Both teams were playing with intensity, but Josh and his teammates didn't back down. The game was tied with only a few minutes left. The energy in the arena was palpable. Every possession felt like it would decide the outcome. With less than a minute on the clock, the ball was in Josh's hands again. The opposing team's defense closed in, but Josh was ready. He faked left, then drove right, weaving through defenders. He wasn't sure if he was going to get the shot off in time, but he made the decision to go for it. He jumped, releasing the ball just as he was about to be hit. The shot was high, spinning toward the basket, and it hit nothing but net. The crowd erupted as Josh's team went up by 2 points. There was still time left on the clock. The other team had one final chance to tie the game or take the lead, but Josh's defense was tight. His heart pounded as the final shot went up, but it missed. The buzzer sounded, and the game was over. Josh's team had won. It was a huge victory, one that sent a clear message to the league. In the locker room, his teammates celebrated, hugging each other, shouting, and laughing. Josh sat quietly, still processing the last few minutes of the game. His shot had made the difference, but it wasn't just about the shot. It was about everything that had led up to that moment. The work he had put in, the lessons he had learned, and the mindset that had carried him through. Jordan's words came back to him, "It's not about how many times you fall. It's about how many times you get up." He had gotten up, over and over again, and tonight, it had paid off. As the celebration began to wind down, one of the veterans on the team, a player who had been in the league for years, pulled Josh aside. "Nice shot, rookie," he said, grinning. "You earned that one." Josh smiled, but there was no time to savor the victory. There was still work to be done. The next game, the next practice, the next challenge, it all started again tomorrow. But tonight, as he sat in the locker room, Josh felt something he hadn't felt before, a sense of belonging. He had always known he was capable of more, but tonight, he knew he was finally starting to reach his potential. This wasn't the end of the journey. It was just another step. There would be more challenges ahead, more games to win, more lessons to learn. But Josh was ready. He had the skills. He had the mindset. And most importantly, he had the belief in himself that he had been missing before. The road to the NBA hadn't been easy. There had been setbacks, failures, and moments when it seemed like it was all too much. But now, as he looked around at his teammates, he knew that the hardest part of the journey was over. He had made it. He had fought through the doubts, the pressure, and the uncertainty. And now, he was playing with the best. As the team boarded the bus to head back to the hotel, Josh couldn't help but smile. The game was still fresh in his mind, but he knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges. There was always more work to be done. But for now, he could take a moment to appreciate how far he had come. The journey was far from over, but Josh was no longer the kid who had shown up on Jordan's lawn, unsure of his place in the world. He was a player in the NBA. And he was just getting started. The end of the season came faster than Josh could have imagined. It felt like just yesterday that he was standing on Jordan's lawn, unsure of his future. Now, he was sitting on the bench during the final game of the regular season, surrounded by teammates who had come to rely on him. It had been a long journey, one filled with countless hours of practice, sacrifice, and struggle. But it had also been one of the most rewarding experiences of his life. He had found his place, not just on the court but in the world of professional basketball. The team had made the playoffs. They were one of the top contenders in the league, and now it was time for Josh to prove himself in the biggest games of his career. This was where the real challenge lay, where the stakes were higher than ever, where every play counted. He had spent his whole life dreaming of moments like these. Now, they were here. But even with everything he had accomplished, he knew that the real test was just beginning. Tonight's game would determine their seeding in the playoffs. It wasn't just a regular season game, it was an opportunity to show the world that they were ready for the postseason. The pressure was palpable. Josh could feel it in the locker room, in the tense atmosphere, the focus in everyone's eyes. This was their chance to make a statement. Josh had been playing well, better than he ever had before. His defense was sharp, his offense was more consistent, and he had become an integral part of the team. But even as he felt more confident in his role, he couldn't ignore the weight of the upcoming game. It was a different kind of pressure, one that came from the realization that everything they had worked for was on the line. This was the moment that would define the season. As the game began, Josh felt the adrenaline coursing through his veins. The crowd's energy was electric, and the stakes were clear. The opposing team came out strong, their offense relentless. But Josh wasn't backing down. He played with the intensity he had learned from Jordan, focusing on every movement, every decision. He had learned to block out the noise, to ignore the pressure, and to just play. It wasn't an easy game. The opposing team was tough, skilled, and determined. They pushed Josh and his teammates to their limits, testing their resolve with every possession. But Josh felt a new level of focus. This wasn't just about winning. It was about proving that he belonged. Every time he made a mistake, he quickly corrected it, determined not to let it affect the next play. Jordan's lessons had prepared him for this, and now he was applying them in real time. Midway through the fourth quarter, the game was tied. The tension was unbearable. Josh had been involved in nearly every play, his heart pounding with each possession. The opposing team had managed to close the gap, and now it was anyone's game. It felt like every second stretched on for an eternity. With just under a minute left on the clock, Josh's team had possession. The ball was passed to him on the perimeter. The defense closed in, but Josh was calm. He faked a shot, then drove hard to the basket. The defense collapsed on him, but he saw his teammate open for a shot. Without hesitation, Josh passed the ball. The shot went up, and it was good. The crowd erupted in cheers as his team took a 3-point lead. But there was still time left. The opposing team quickly advanced the ball and set up for a final play. Josh knew this would be the deciding moment. The ball swung to the perimeter, and Josh's defender was looking for an opportunity to make a move. The tension in the air was thick. He couldn't afford to make a mistake. Josh stayed tight on his man, moving with him as he drove toward the basket. The player took the shot, an open three-pointer with the game on the line. Josh watched in slow motion as the ball flew through the air. It hit the rim, bounced once, and then fell off. The crowd held its breath, but when the buzzer sounded, the ball was still in the air. It missed. The game was over. Josh's team had won. In that moment, the entire arena seemed to explode. Josh's teammates rushed onto the court, celebrating as the fans went wild. Josh stood still for a moment, breathing heavily, trying to process what had just happened. He had been part of the most crucial play of the game, and now they were heading to the playoffs with momentum on their side. As his teammates swarmed around him, congratulating him for his great pass and defensive play, Josh felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had made the right decisions at the right time. He had stayed calm under pressure. and he had helped his team secure the win. It wasn't just about the shot he made or the play he assisted. It was about everything that had led him to this moment, the years of work, the sacrifices, the lessons learned from Jordan. All of it had come together. He had found his place on the court, and now he was playing the game he loved at the highest level. Later that night, Josh sat in the locker room, reflecting on the game. The weight of the season, the pressure, the intensity, it all felt worth it now. He had made it through the toughest moments and had come out on top. But he knew that the work wasn't done. The playoffs were just beginning, and there would be even bigger challenges ahead. The pressure would only increase. But he was ready for it. He had been through too much to back down now. Jordan called him later that night, just as Josh was winding down from the game. He had been watching from the sidelines, and his voice came through the phone with a familiar calmness. "You did well," Jordan said. "You stayed focused when it counted. You trusted yourself." "Thanks, Coach," Josh replied, smiling. "It feels like it's all coming together." "It is," Jordan said. "But remember, it's not over yet. This is just one game. Now you've got to carry that momentum into the next one. Keep playing with that same confidence. You've earned it." Josh listened, grateful for Jordan's continued guidance. The road had been long, and there were still obstacles ahead, but for the first time, Josh truly believed in himself. He wasn't the same kid who had shown up on Jordan's lawn months ago. He was an NBA player now, and the journey had only just begun. The playoffs were a different kind of battle, but Josh knew that he was ready. He wasn't just playing for a spot in the league anymore. He was playing for the team, for his family, and for himself. He had the mindset, the skills, and the belief that he could make it. He had everything it took to succeed. As the season moved forward, Josh's team made a strong push in the playoffs, and although they fell just short of winning it all, Josh's growth as a player was undeniable. The coaches, his teammates, and even the fans had come to appreciate his contributions. He had played his part, and he knew that, no matter what, he had earned his place. In the offseason, Josh thought back to that first day when he had arrived at Jordan's house, desperate for a chance. Now, he was living that dream. And as he prepared for the next season, he knew that it wasn't about how he had gotten there, it was about where he was going next. The journey was far from over. But Josh had made it. And in that moment, he was content. This was just the beginning. The next chapter was waiting.